Hey guys, welcome back. Robocraft early access coverage. This is episode 69 because tier 10 sucks. I'm Enigmius and today we're building a new bot. This was originally going to be a tier 6 bot, thus the blue cubes. I ended up having it in tier 7. I haven't done any matches in it yet, but it's done and it's a tier 7 bot. There's not much that I can do about that. There's more TX1 testing going on in tier 10, and it's with electroplates that don't belong in tier 10, and it's made it very, very unentertaining, we should say. That's not even a word, unentertaining. It's unenjoyable to be in tier 10 right now unless you're participating in the testing, and if you're participating in the testing, it's because you have millions of RP to spare to buy these components and build the bots to test with them, which there's a certain segment of the players do, and it's like they're being rewarded for being long-time players by being given these components that no one else wants to fight against. If you're not using these electroplates, you don't want to be fighting bots that are using these electroplates. They're way beyond what is reasonable for tier 10. And the consequence is that we can't get anything done there and be able to enjoy ourselves. I got so many hero bonuses in the last day trying to get dailies done because there's nothing you can do against the bots with these electroplates. So we're going to down tier it a little bit. We're going to take it back into tier 7 where these TX1 issues aren't an issue. We're going to carry on with our plan. So this is going to be another gunbed. It's going to be symmetrical. This is a pretty quick build as armor core builds go. It's a total of 35 minutes before we sped it up to get the thing from white cubes on the floor, lifting it up off the ground, to last couple of cubes going on. And it's just basically, I want to be doing a guide for beginners, like a early beginner's guide, and maybe even up to the intermediate level. People who just have some kind of questions on what they should be doing. They want some ideas. See, every time I do a guide, I get someone accusing me of being an elitist and telling people how to play, and it's really, no, it's just giving people ideas. Something that if they don't have any ideas of their own, it might be of use to them. They can kind of use the ones that they like and leave the rest behind. That's the whole idea. But in order to do that, I need a bot that I can use to get footage, and that's what this bot is going to be. It's going to be a little bit more on the cosmetic side than the last one that we did. I went specifically asymmetrical with the tier 10 gunbed, and it's not a very pretty looking bot. It's this big grotesque kind of Hunchback of Notre Dame kind of thing, and I'm fine with that. You know, as a design, as you know, a challenge to build a bot like that, I have no reservations about doing that kind of thing. But other times it's kind of nice to make something that looks a little bit snazzy, even if it means we're kind of sacrificing performance a tiny bit, which is what we're going to end up doing with this guy. Now, we're kind of trying to learn from what we learned from the last gunbed, in that the wheels from front to back should be spaced out as far as possible, and that eliminates the tilting when you move forward. The front wheels don't lift up. We've got steering wheels on the front and back for this bot. What else are we doing that's a little bit different? We're doing a little bit more detailed cosmetic around the wheels for the armor, not because we have to, but just because I felt like doing it that way. There's, you know, more than one way to skin a cat. It doesn't always have to be optimum, and there's sometimes, you know, multiple ways to do things that are equally effective or functionally equally effective. So in this case, all we're aiming to do is, again, using armor core techniques, making sure that we're routing damage and thinking about where damage is going, but kind of doing individual wheel wells for the wheels instead of just extending the spine out to cover them on the front and the back, and then extending the skirt, so to speak, to match the spine and making it look like one big wavy sheet of blocks, which might actually work in this bot with the blue, be like the ocean. Maybe not. Now, I've been kind of thinking a little bit about little miniature structures within the armor core design. Like, we've got this wavy thing that we've been doing that kind of routes damage up and down and, you know, backwards and forwards and all these other places to force things to go through more blocks than it would normally do if it was just passing through cubes. And that's kind of the basic design. But then when we end up with this little chevron design like that, there are things that we can do to kind of spin the blocks this way that end up with something that still transfers damage almost exactly the same way, but we can actually present like a flat face on the exterior of the bot, which makes it look a little bit less like an armor core or a Triforce build, and a little bit more like it's made out of cubes, even though it's not. And in this case, we're actually setting ourselves up a little bit, practicing the idea of not transferring damage into things that we want to keep. If there's going to be damage going somewhere, we want it going, back into other blocks. Not to think that it would ever, jump across from a block to a tire, but it's just a habit to get into, building it a certain way, and then when you really need it to be done right, you kind of do it almost automatically without having to think too much about it. It's just practice, I guess you could say, is the short version of it. And here we're doing basically the same thing, just by spinning them around. Instead of the chevron design, we're still creating something that has the exact same damage transfer properties, but it looks different. So that's kind of something to mess around with. I thought actually about doing like a build bites or a burst fire or some sort of little brief episode showing some of these little miniature structures to kind of help people add it to their repertoire and stuff. And I might do it, but all I really came up with was like three different little miniature things that would have been like a 45-second video, and that's just not enough to justify people's time to come and watch it, add it to a playlist, and people watch it thinking, what the hell did I just do that for? So again, also thinking in terms of how to make things more robust. Right, we talk about that with the armor core. We can do things that are just a single spindly line of blocks that will route damage wherever we want it to go, but if it's just one line of blocks, it's not very strong. So here's an example here where we have an opportunity to make it too wide, extending out from the spine and then around the wheels. So we really want to take advantage of that. Now the downside is it means more blocks, more CPU, more weight. The upside, it means more armor and ultimately a sturdier bot that's going to be able to soak more damage before important things start falling off. And then we'll end up having basically something very, very similar here, only we're going to make it 3 wide, and then we're going to make sure that that center area that's currently vacant has blocks that are going to route some damage around in hopefully a productive way. There's a limit to how much damage you can actually route. I mean, a bot can only get so big. We're waiting to see how big megabots can actually be. I would imagine they'll be quite large, but there's still going to be a limit to how much damage you can route before it's going to end up somewhere where you don't want it. And I think there's a lot to be said for the benefits of electroplates in kind of helping that out. So this bot, I actually, from the beginning, from the design, the early design standpoint, I knew that I was going to have enough CPU that I could build it out the way that I wanted. And if I actually tried to take advantage of all of it, I'd end up at like tier 8 or something. We didn't want that, but because we had that extra CPU, I decided that it might be a good idea to kind of build it with electroplates in mind from the beginning to some extent, and then end up augmenting the difference between a pure armor core build and an electroplate clad build. We'll get that extra damage absorption from the electroplates, the strength from the armor core, and hopefully a really good synergy between the two to make sure that this bot isn't a balloon, because we've seen enough balloons. There's only so much you can do with a cockpit design before it's just old hat. It's not even an interesting part of the build for me anymore, unless I do something like this, where I can kind of make it a little bit more aesthetically pleasing by changing where we start the blocks that come up and extend over this place or that place, and then having a little bit of a difference in terms. You see this little middle strip is coming down, and it's still going to be a strong connection. We don't have to worry too much about weakening by making it look like that, but visually it's a little bit more interesting than just a regular pod around the driver's seat. And again, giving thought to where damage is going to flow, making sure that we're not sending damage directly into the core of the vehicle so that you can pop the driver's seat very easily, but at the same time, trying not to make it so bulky that we can't get anything else on the bot because this big piece of crap is in the way. And just shoring it up, adding more blocks, doing what we can. At some point I could see myself coming back around and adding more Tetras to the build that you're going to see today. That's always a pretty easy way to add more armor, the ability to absorb even more damage. But for the time being, I just wanted to get this thing done so that I can get back into some matches that play out normally and gather some critical footage, some extremely important footage of gameplay things that don't matter. Now I'm just kind of messing around the wheels, making sure that I can add any more blocks around them. And again, it's just more armor between the spots that the enemy is going to shoot at and the spots that we need to keep. And then we kind of want to build up a little bit around the wheels. Again, plasma is still going to be an issue in tier 7. That's not going to change. We were just in tier 7 with our medic, the little yellow mystery bot medic. I'm kind of feeling like this tier thing with the different kinds of tiers of blocks is limiting in terms of the creativity, because you can do a whole build like this and then find out after the fact that you're up in a tier that you didn't want to be in. Now you have to redo the whole damn build. I agree with people that think it would be nice if you could just kind of upgrade the blocks. Just click of a button. Everything on this bot that's tier 6, try and upgrade it to tier 7 using all the tier 7 blocks that I have in my inventory, and just take it as far as you can go. And then later on you can buy more tier 7 bricks when you have the RP and issue the command again, and it'll change over any leftover blocks to the higher tier. That would be, to me, really, really neat, a real asset to the creative process. Right now, what I'm finding is we're overusing the term supporting creativity, because there's a lot of things in the game that really just kind of hamper creativity. But there are other situations where you can say, yeah, it does support creativity, but also makes people mad. But that's the excuse that we're using, is supporting creativity. So it's one of those things where sometimes we use expressions that don't necessarily fit. Like when people say, I don't have time, what it usually means is they're saying it's not a priority for me, or I'm not interested enough to do it. They're not really saying that they don't have time, because anyone can take a look at any day and look back at it and say, yeah, I could have carved out 2 hours there, 3 hours there, 4 hours there. It's usually not that big of a deal for most people, but that's the expression that we use a lot, is, oh, I don't have time for that. So supporting creativity, it would be nice to see it applied uniformly, and actually encouraging things like creative builds instead of just saying make a tiny little bot and cover it in electroplates and call it done. Electroplates to me is like painting by numbers, really. That's one of the reasons why I don't use it so much. And I'm not trying to take anything away from anyone who likes using electroplates. I'm just saying, from my point of view, my opinion, it's like basically giving you this framework that you have to work within. You can only build out so much before you put the electroplate on, or the electroplate will collide with the blocks. So you have to essentially make a structure that fits the electroplates, and then you put the electroplates on, and the aesthetics of the bot are done for you. The thing is, they're very effective, and in a lot of cases it's preferable to have something that actually regenerates its ability to absorb damage on its own without medic's intervention. This kind of comes back to the issue that's happening in tier 10 now with TX1 electroplates, is that they take hardly any time at all for a tier 10 medic to restore a broken electroplate, and it takes forever for anyone to shoot it off. It takes 3 rail shots, 3 direct hits from plasma, or I think it was 22 SMG shots to pop off one of these tier 10 electroplates, and in that time, a tier 10 medic can very easily replace it on the bot by repairing it. So, supporting creativity, we'll do our own creativity, and then we'll take it into the tiers where it matters, where we can actually make it work, and we'll see how it goes. Now you can see here we've got kind of some guns. One of the things that you notice is completely absent from this build, the detailed gun mounts. I put a little bit of effort in, especially the ones that are sitting on the wheel wells, into kind of beefing up the wheel wells a little bit so that they'll route some damage before it goes directly to the guns. But realistically speaking, we're doing a lot of gun mounts. Like when we do a video of a build lately, literally half of it is gun mounts. So in this case, I didn't really want to go that far. We're not going to be using this bot forever. It's not profitable to use tier 7 bots. But for the next week or so, while we're getting this TX1 stuff out of people's systems, it's going to be the most functional opportunity for us to get into the game. As soon as, tier 10 goes back to being a normal place to play the game in competitive matches, then we'll be back there and we'll be earning much more RP and all these other things. But for right now, again, one thing also, consideration, not to toot my own horn, but going out of our way to not over tier on this build. That's how we ended up in tier 7, is because I only had tier 7 SMGs. I didn't want to buy any more tier 6 components than I absolutely have to. I bought a couple of steering wheels and a couple of regular wheels for tier 6 just to keep it there, and then we ended up in tier 7 anyways. So the bot is basically the kind of bot that you might show up to tier 7 with if you had spent a certain amount of time at tier 6, upgraded everything to the best that you had access to with tier 6 tech points, and then showed up at tier 7. So by no means have we given ourselves any kind of advantage, except for maybe this CPU. We're like level 83 or 84 now, something like that, which is an advantage that can be bought anyways. So hopefully we'll have something that's sufficiently competitive that we can have some fun in the matches, and at the same time get some decent footage without making other people suffer through a difficult playing situation because we've chosen to use things that are above their ability to acquire at that particular point in the game. So now, just playing around with the electroplates, seeing where we can make them fit that makes sense. This actually does, this position here protects that rearmost top SMG because it's not really the strongest mount that it's sitting on. So it protects it from the rear a little bit. And then we'll eventually get one to fit over this rear wheel well, which is not necessarily super important. It'll protect the rear steering wheels, which will hopefully keep us mobile for a little bit longer throughout the matches. But also, it was just a spot on the bot that looked like I could fit an electroplate without too much difficulty. I was not correct. It took a little while, a little bit of fiddling to get it done. But at this point, we're basically done with the build. We're just kind of doing the last bit of tweaking to get the electroplates on, and then we'll go around and see what we can do with the last few chassis blocks we have without having to buy more. And then the next episode, we'll do another shakedown video. We'll kind of get into some matches, see how it does. If we need to make some modifications, we will. And then we'll be starting to accumulate footage towards the guide video. And in the meantime, we'll do some match footage of whatever happens to be going on. So if you want to be notified when I add those or other videos, as always, you can subscribe to my channel. You can follow me on social media. Links for that always in the information section below the video. Please leave your comments and feedback. Thanks for watching, guys, and take care.